Greetings everyone, welcome to Just Advance. This game was played in FIDE World Cup finals, and with the white pieces we have Andrey Esipenko facing off against Nodirbek Yakubboev, and this is going to be an epic round because whoever wins this one gets a spot in the candidate, so that's going to be absolutely crucial. So let's see what happens here with the white pieces. What Andrey goes for e4. We have c5 going for the Sicilian defense, knight to f3, knight to c6, and just going for d4. This is the open Sicilian, and we have c captures, knight captures, and now just going for this knight to f6, and we have knight to c3, e6 in this position, not going for the knight off and choosing to go for this 4 knights variation. Now we have this knight captures, b captures, and now here just going for e5. We have knight to d5 now, and that knight on d5 looks to be really powerful, but now just comes this knight to e4 and threatening to go for that check, and also just to give that. And if that pawn gets there, I mean, it's just going to be a nuisance because you're never just pushing d5 ever again. And in this position, just bishop to b7 was played, which is the best move in this position. And Yakubboev thought that playing this bishop to b7 line in this position would definitely just throw off Andrey Esipenko, but unfortunately for him, he was well versed in this line. And in this position, the best move is actually c4. You just try to kick away the knight. Once the knight goes to b4, now you go for even c5. Now you're controlling just so much square. I mean, it just looks so good. I mean, just looks so good from the perspective of white. And after queen to b8, now trying to just capture this, that will come with a pin. So here just f4 protecting it, and after bishop to a6, now you go for a3, pushing the knight back. Bishop captures, rook captures, and the game goes on. Both players have equal chances. King is going to have to remain in the center, or you can tuck him in later, but well, the position is very nice. I mean, with these 2 pawns there, the king is going to have to remain a not so good piece, because you're never pushing that, and whatever chance you have of certain gameplays is only going to happen towards the queen side. But in this position, Andrey Esipenko definitely shocked Nodirbek Yakubboev. He went for this bishop to d3, and bishop to d3, although is given a question mark, mind that, because the thing is that it's not the best move in this position as c4 was, but it's definitely preparation. And he threw away Nodirbek Yakubboev so much that he spent 10 minutes on this move, and he goes for queen to c7. Although there was a lot of moves in this position, queen to c7 was the top recommendation. You could have also gone for queen to a5 check, which seems to be a bit more natural. And after queen to c7, just f4. So everything was prepared, and it was just fielding was set completely, and Yakubboev just completely fell onto the traps. And here knight to b4 was played, attacking it, but here just comes bishop to e2 and finally c5. So all of these are engine moves. So he is finding the right ideas, but the trouble is when you have some amazing preparation, the first moves that are checked are the engine's best moves. So the more best moves you play, it's more likely that Andrey Esipenko is more prepared for it. A bishop to f3, the best move played instantly, and now in this position you had to go for the c4 idea. And c4 is an amazing move in this position because here after a3, now pushing the knight back, knight goes back to d5, and now you go for queen to d4. That queen on the center of the board looks so magnanimous in this position because that knight is going to jump in somewhere along the line, and although this bishop is very nice, but it's going to get undermined somewhere along the line. But here queen to a5 check, and now once you play this c3 move, now rook to c8, and after castles, queen to b6 asking for a trade, you just trade, and you have a very nice position. The game goes on with both players having roughly equal chances. Anyone who would want anything, I think, would definitely choose white to be able to try and win this game. But after this, bishop to d5 was played, and this is not at all a good move. But still, if it's not a good move, Andrey still does have to find the best move on the board, but he's the one up on time. So in this position, he goes for the best move, which is just castles. And now bishop to e7 was placed, preparing castles, but now comes c3, asking where are you putting that knight, because you took away the d5 square from the knight, and that's why it was not a good move. But here just knight to c6, and now just comes bishop to e3. And bishop to e3 given a question mark, mind that, because here in this position, you could have gone for knight to d6 check, but you're not going to find this. I mean, it was, he had a +1 advantage if he went for it, but you're not going to find it. And the only reason he had a +1 advantage for it is because here after bishop captures and e captures, now you just go, you cannot go for this queen captures. That's the problem, because Then you would have ideas like c4 in the position, pinning that because your queen would be undefended. So lot more ideas in this position, and definitely would be a great move because it prevents the king from castling and you cannot capture. So here in this position, bishop to e3, that's why given as a missed opportunity. But now just comes castle, and here we have knight to g3, and we have bishop captures on f3. The tension between the bishops has been released, and now just comes queen captures, and finally in this position executing the move d5. But d5 is a move, it's double-edged definitely, because now e caps on d6 paid immediately. And the things about these positions is that the person who has the most preps knows that in these positions, whatever move you play, it could be the worst move of the position, still the best move is something that he has definitely looked up. So those best moves in the position, it just remains there, and somewhere along the line, once you are calculating, your brain just goes towards those best moves because you have prepped them, and those moves you just need to point them at the right time and your opponent will definitely crumble. And that's exactly what Andrey Esipenko did. Here after e caps on d6, bishop captures was played. Seems to be everything is natural, right? But now just comes f5, and it seems to be normal, but you are in a lot of trouble. Andrey Esipenko is playing spectacularly, and Nodirbek Yakubboev just hasn't realized that it's going to be very difficult to try and do anything. Hey, just bishop captures on g3 was played, queen captures, edge captures, and now just comes c4, taking up more space. And you must be thinking, how is this just completely winning? It's not completely winning. It's just a little bit of advantages that have been pushed upon Nodirbek Yakubboev for him to think for longer moments of times. And this is only move 21, and he is down to 27 minutes on the clock, and he's gonna have to burn more because Andrey Esipenko has come completely prepared. And this is what happens when you completely out prepare your opponent. And here in this position, there was a beautiful move, which is this rook to f4. Rook to f4 with the idea of just going after this pawn, and after this rook, you have to e8. Now you just go for this f caps on e6, rook captures on c4, rook captures on c6. Now in this position, looks to be a complete draw, but again 3 against 1. And although you have these 3 pawns against this one, but it's hardly unlikely that you will have something, because you're not going to be able to push those pawns very easily because the king is there. And it's still double-edged, but I would prefer white here definitely. After c4, here f caps on e6 was paid either way, but after f captures, now just comes rook captures, and they decide to go for a different kind of endgame, and I am very glad he did, because here after rook to d1, rook to b8 was played, just targeting that backwards b2 pawn, because you can never go for b4 because of en passant. And here rook to d6 was played, attacking the knight, attacking the pawn, knight to e5 finally. But now just comes rook caps on e6, knight to g4, attacking the bishop, and here just bishop goes all the way back to c1, preparing and saving that b2 pawn. And also somewhere along the line, you're going to develop the bishop wherever you want it to. You don't have to worry about it right now. The rook to d8 in this position, just preparing that rook to d1 check. And now just comes king to f1. You don't have to worry about it because the rook can always drop back, and there is no reason to worry. King to f7, attacking the rook goes back, and now just comes rook to d5. And in this position, king to e1 was played, and as I told you, it's only move 30, and now Nodirbek Yakubboev is down to less than 3 minutes on the clock, and this is looking to be very painful. A knight to e5 was played, but this only adds to Andrey Esipenko's better position. Here Andrey finds the right idea, and I told you in these lines, the best moves are just going to completely throw out of Andrey Esipenko. He goes for b3, and b3 is a beautiful move because now knight to d3 check was played, but now just comes even king to d1. And here finally the last blunder, the last nail in the coffin. Here h5 was played, and h5 is a complete blunder and just completely loses the game right on the spot. What you had to do in this position was just to trade off into an endgame here after rook to d3. And the trouble is, because you're not going to be able to see all of these moves in less than 3 minutes on the clock, because here after rook to f2 check, what you had to see after king to e7 is rook to f3 does not work because you have rook to d6. And if rook to f4 trying to go after the pawn, c captures, a captures, and this position looks much more holdable than what you're about to see on the board, because here after king to d1, h5 was played, and I told you this was the last nail in the coffin. And now in this position, bishop to d2 was played, but this is much worse because the move that was played earlier was a complete blunder. And here after rook to a5, finally trying to go for the pawns, it's not going to work out now, because in this position Andrey Esipenko goes for the 5th brilliant move of the game. He goes for bishop to e3 in this position. And you must be thinking why it's a brilliant move. Engineer is only giving it as a brilliant move because this move actually saves everything and also just keeps lets you have the advantage. And here a6 was played, now just comes b caps on c4, rook to e5 was trying to pin, but now just comes bishop to d4. And if you trade and go into an endgame, this is going to be like easy meat. But here after rook to g5 in this position, king to c2 was played, and now just comes this rook caps on g3. But in this position, just this bishop to e3 was played, and here Nodirbek Yakubboev resigned the game, and Andrey Esipenko is one up in his, just on the brink, on the horizon, at the very end, getting towards the candidates he is. And this is going to be a really interesting turn of events, because Andrei Sipenko could very well be very amazingly prepared, and he is a top class player for years. He's finally getting his break, and it is definitely much deserved. Let's see what will happen in the next game. Obviously it's going to be a crucial one, but let's see what happens. And why he resigned is basically you cannot do anything. If you try to save the knight, then just comes bishop to f4, just hitting the knight, hitting the rook, that would be completely over. If you try to go for some checks with knight to e1 check, then just comes this rook captures, and if rook caps on g2, maybe you think that you're getting a pawn, you're just losing this, but you have 3 and you have a passer, maybe you can hold this. It's not going to work out. Let's say rook to g4, then just comes bishop to d4, and now you already have weaknesses. You cannot move away from the g5, and if h4, then just comes c5, if h3, c6, and you're going to have to go back with the rook. Once you do, I just gobble up this pawn, and I am a piece up. This is a weak pawn. You cannot even push it, because this would be really disastrous. And if you go for this rook to b7 checking to c4, rook to b5, now just comes this a4, and I'm going to push those pawns, and it's going to be a completely winning endgame sooner than you think. Rook to g5, rook to h1, king to e6, and rook to d1. This is just not playable at all. I mean, you have basically no compensation. You have a pawn for a bishop, and not even that actually. So that's why he resigned here after bishop to e3, and Andrey got his spectacular victory in less than 40 moves. Kudos to him. Let's see what happens in the next game. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be coming back with some of these amazing games, so stay tuned to the channel, stay updated, and I'll be seeing you guys very soon. Thank you very much for watching.